All right, so after years of serious misconduct, former CIA chief and Obama sycophant John Brennan can kiss his security clearance bye-bye. Today, President Trump stripped Brennan's special government access. Now, Sarah Sanders announced this decision earlier today. Take a look.
I've decided to revoke the security clearance of John Brennan, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. At this point in my administration, any benefits that senior officials might glean from consultations with Mr. Brennan are now outweighed by the risks posed by his erratic conduct and behavior. Second, that conduct and behavior has tested and far exceeded the limits of any professional courtesy that may have been due to him. Mr. Brennan has a history that calls into question his objectivity and credibility. I am evaluating action with respect to the following individuals: James Clapper, James Comey, Michael Hayden, Sally Yates, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Bruce Orr. Security clearances for those who still have them may be revoked, and those who have already lost their security clearance may not be able to have it reinstated.
It is about time. For months right here on this program, we have been calling out Brennan over his serious and blatant abuse of power. For example, during his time as Obama CIA Director, John Brennan was responsible for the proliferation of Christopher Steele's dirty dossier in an effort to take down then-candidate Donald Trump and legitimize salacious, unverified claims, Russian lies found in that dossier. Brennan actually leaked its contents to then-Senator Harry Reid, who then subsequently alerted the public in an open letter to James Comey. He pushed Hillary Clinton's Russian lies to purposely deceive and lie to you, the American people. Why? So he could sway an election. And despite all of this, remember, Brennan told Congress, oh, the CIA did not make use of the dirty dossier. That was a flat-out lie. And that, my friends, is a gross abuse of power. Brennan literally tried to use your federal government to weaponize the Clinton campaign's phony Russian opposition research against Donald Trump. It's beyond disgusting. And by the way, he's a walking, talking representative of why the American people do not have faith and trust in their government. And by the way, and speaking of talking, after stepping down as CIA director, John Brennan, well, he's done a lot of it. In fact, he took all his hatred of Donald Trump from the highest levels of the CIA, abusing his power, to his new job. He's now paid by a so-called news agency, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, so-called news channel. He continues to peddle all this propaganda and misinformation and disinformation. How fitting. Take a look at the conduct from a former so-called nonpartisan CIA director who once had his fingers on every American secret we have. Watch this.
Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency with his invective, with his constant disregard, I think, for human decency. He is, I think, the most divisive president we've ever had in the Oval Office. He is feeding and fueling hatred and animosity and misunderstandings among Americans.
I think there's a big question, first of all, in terms of those who are on Mr. Trump's national security team, whether they can continue to serve in good conscience an individual who basically betrayed his nation. What Mr. Trump did yesterday was to betray the women and men of the FBI, the CIA, NSA, and others, and to betray the American public. And that's why I use the term that this is nothing short of treasonous. I think he's afraid of the president of Russia.
Why?
Well, I think one can speculate as to why. That the Russians may have something on him personally that they could always roll out and make his life more difficult.
Mr. Trump continues to have his ignorance of the facts or willful disregard of them, again, just to follow through on these campaign promises that really were very flawed.
I and so many other former national security officials are speaking out because of the abnormal and aberrant behavior of Mr. Trump.
This is a very large and painful national kidney stone. The relief we feel afterward is going to be just exhilarating.
Now, for anybody that thinks that that man, that Trump-hating partisan, MSNBC hack, should have a security clearance, let me make this very simple and easy to understand. And by the way, I'll read to you from the official CIA rules. And by the way, all of you biased hacks in the media, you need to do your jobs. You need to tell your audiences the truth. what the rules of the CIA are. Quote, in the case of former directors, the agency holds their security clearance and renews it every 5 years for the rest of their lives. However, that requires former CIA directors to behave like current CIA employees. So is what you saw, is that, a man demeaning a sitting president of the United States on a daily basis on national TV? Is that acceptable behavior for a sitting member of the CIA? Of course not. But the always indignant John Brennan, he's lashing out yet again today, writing on Twitter, quote, this action is part of a broader effort by Mr. Trump to suppress freedom of speech and punish critics. It should gravely worry all Americans, including intelligence professionals, about the cost of speaking out. My principles are worth far more than clearances. I will not relent. Mr. Brennan then followed that up with a more vitriolic appearance on, Conspiracy TV, NBC. Take a look.
I do believe that Mr. Trump decided to take this action, as he's done with others, to try to intimidate and suppress any criticism of him or his administration. And revoking my security clearances is his way of trying to get back at me. I've seen this type of behavior and actions on the part of foreign tyrants and despots and autocrats for many, many years during my CIA and national security career. I never, ever thought that I would see it here in the United States. And so I do believe that all Americans really need to take stock of what is happening right now in our government.
I love getting lectured from former communists. This country is a better place tonight without that man having his fingers on America's most sensitive secrets. How a former communist ever became Barack Obama's CIA director is another insane part of all of this. Now, meanwhile, as Sarah Sanders announced, 9 other current or former official security clearances are also under review, including the liar, the leaker that is known as James Clapper. That would include James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Susan Rice, Peter Strzok, Bruce Ohr, and others. My advice, clean it up now. Get rid of all these clearances. We could easily make the case all night tonight. Each of these disgraced or fired officials should lose their clearances permanently, but we'd have to take all night. But we do once again have other breaking news to talk about one of the people on that list. According to an exclusive report from Sarah Carter, we now have smoking gun evidence of the very special relationship between demoted DOJ official Bruce Ohr and ex-foreign spy Christopher Steele, who put that phony dossier together. Carter has uncovered yet another series of texts tonight between Ohr and Steele. In one text, look at this, Christopher Steele expressing concern about James Comey's 2017 congressional testimony, writing 2 days before that testimony. Hi, just wondering if you had any news. Obviously, we're a bit apprehensive given the scheduled appearance at Congress on Monday, hoping that important firewalls will hold. Many thanks. All writes back. Sorry. No new news. I believe my earlier information is still accurate. I'll let you know immediately if there's any change. Sounds like the firewall's in place. What are these firewalls? What did Christopher Steele have to hide? And what was Bruce Ohr trying to cover up? And why was Monday so important? As we said, well, that's the day that James Comey was set to testify before Congress. And Steele was afraid. Let's see. We know of the Senate Intel Committee and their scrutiny. He was afraid of media scrutiny. He wanted a firewall to hold. Firewalls, plural. Bruce Ohr, Steele, had at least, we now know, 70 contacts. And meanwhile, Steele was just desperate to get his dossier in the hands of Robert Mueller. And under oath in Great Britain, we know that he couldn't even stand by his own fake claims in his Clinton bought and paid for dossier. He said, it's just raw intelligence. I don't know if it's true. Now, why is Ohr still working at the DOJ? Why his wife worked for Fusion GPS? What was her role? Remember, we just discovered that they had another client besides Clinton. We just learned a Kremlin, a tied lawyer, and Russian oligarch. So Fusion GPS is being paid by them and the Clintons? And what about Glenn Simpson from Fusion GPS meeting with that Kremlin lawyer both before and after the now infamous 2016 Trump Tower meeting? That doesn't sound fishy to you? Mark it down on your calendar. These questions must be posed to Bruce Ohr when he testifies before Congress on August the 28th. By the way, why aren't those hearings public? We reached out to Orr for comment. Shockingly, didn't receive a reply. Sarah Carter will have more details in her report. She'll join us in a few minutes. But first, we do have an update on the media's trial of the century. After just 12 days, closing arguments on both sides have now come to an end. Paul Manafort's defense is clearly relying on the terrible credibility of the prosecution's star witness, and that's Manafort's former business partner, Rick Gates. Despite him admitting to numerous felonies, Team Mueller provided Gates with a get-out-of-jail-free card in exchange for his testimony. It's like the case of, remember, Sammy the Bull Garavano, the gangster, who killed up to 19 people. And by the way, it's so many other seedy individuals that our justice system frequently offers up sentencing, get-out-of-jail-free cards, prosecutorial bribes, if you will, in exchange for testimony. It's a serious problem, frequently resulting in less than trustworthy testimony. But in the case of Paul Manafort, well, we should all be prepared, frankly, for a guilty verdict, and I'll tell you why. 95% of federal cases end up that way. And while the media, they'll cheer in unison if Paul Manafort is found guilty, you must remember this. This case of Mueller had nothing, zero to do with Russia, zero to do with collusion, nothing to do with Manafort's work on the campaign, and zero to do with Donald Trump. Why are we even here? We'll have more on this throughout the show. But now we turn to the midterm elections, which are only 83 days away. And as we predicted, well, the language of the left is getting downright disgusting, as it does every 2 to 4 years. In Tennessee, Democrat Steve Cohen urged Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, who's running for the Senate, to jump off her bridge. By the way, they go high, we go, oh, something like that. Take a look.
The big orange president, that's not somebody from Knoxville. He's going to come down here and he's going to endorse Marsha Blackburn. Because Marsha Blackburn, if he says, jump off the Harahan Bridge, she'll jump off the Harahan Bridge. I wish he'd say that.
And if you really want to know how pathetic the Democratic Party is, well, just look at New York. Its governor, Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo, announcing his brand new campaign slogan. I'm not making it up. You have to see it to believe it. Take a look.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness. We will reach greatness when every American is fully engaged.
America has never been great? Okay. Test at home. Name me one country in the history of mankind that has accumulated more power and abused it less than the United States, that has accumulated more power and used it to advance the human condition around the world more than the United States of America. It doesn't exist. No, we're not perfect. This is the same America that beat back fascism and communism and Nazism and Imperial Japan and has stood for human rights and dignity all around the world at great cost to this country. Now, of course, what segments on America's left would be complete without an overt threat to the President of the United States? Take a look. This poster from the band Pearl Jam showing what appears to be the skeletal remains of a dead President Trump outside a burning White House. And while Pearl Jam apparently wants the president to go down in flames, most Democrats, they'll just settle for impeachment. It is the cornerstone of what is their political strategy for 83 days, should they win in November. And no one has been more upfront about this plan than the de facto leader of the Democratic Party, Maxine Waters. Let's take a look.
Your birthday is on Wednesday.
Yes.
So pre-happy birthday. But on Wednesday, if you could be granted one birthday wish, what would that be?
I guess now my biggest birthday wish would be that we're able to get a leader of this country who represents us. I would wish that we could remove him from office and go about getting the kind of president that we could all be proud of. And if he's not impeached, if he cannot be impeached, 2020 is coming up, and I believe that American people are going to do the right thing for our country, stand up for what is right, and get rid of this man who is embarrassing us all.
Well, today, Maxine Waters' birthday wish, it didn't come true, but President Trump did honor her 80th birthday on Twitter. He wrote, quote, "Happy birthday to the leader of the Democratic Party, Maxine Waters. On this program, we'd also like to wish Congresswoman Waters a very happy birthday. And to celebrate, well, we put together a montage of the very best of the leader of the Democratic Party that would like to take power in 83 days. Take a look.
The Senate Intel Committee, with the House
Reclaiming my
Intel
time.
Committee, with the
Reclaiming my
Senate
time.
Judiciary
Reclaiming my
Committee.
time.
Okay.
Reclaiming
Matter of
my
fact,
time.
Mr. Secretary,
Reclaiming my
the time belongs to the gentlelady from California.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the rules because I
Reclaiming
thought I
my
was allowed to
time.
answer questions.
Reclaiming my time. Would you please explain the rules and do not take that away from my time? With this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight. And I will fight every day until he is impeached. Impeached 45. This is a bunch of scumbags. That's what they are.
Those are very strong words,
organized around making money. The fact that he is wrapping his arms around Putin while Putin is continuing to advance into Korea.
Now, from all of us who support the president and his agenda, keep it up, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Now, the most honest voice in the Democratic Party.